Lucky I'm in love with my best friend. Lucky to have been where I have been. Lucky to be coming home again.
Hello, in today's video we're going to learn about the past simple. And I know I always say the English grammar is very easy, present simple, present continuous, but in this case the past simple is really easy, especially if you compare it to the Spanish grammar. The Spanish grammar, to study the past in Spanish is much more difficult than to study it in English. So that's good for us. We're going to start by learning when to use the past simple. Then we're going to learn how to create a sentence in past simple. And then we'll learn about the regular and the irregular verbs, and we will revise some of the verbs from the sentences that we're going to see. Okay? So, when do we use the past simple tense? So basically, we use the past simple to talk about things, facts, actions that happened in the past. By past, I mean yesterday, the day before yesterday, antes de ayer, last week, last weekend, last month, last year, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was a kid, when my mom was a child, okay, etc. So there are so many possibilities to talk about the past, right? So the formula, the past simple's formula is this one that you need to memorize in order to use them properly. So the affirmative is subject, I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. The verb in the past, it can be regular or irregular. So in this case, it's regular, closed, but it can be irregular. For example, ate. We will talk about that in a moment. And the complements, the door. So that would be I closed the door. I closed the door. Negative. Subject, same. I, you, he, she, it, etc. Didn't, that's it. Didn't. Plus the verb in the present, close, it. We're talking about irregular verbs. And then complements, the door. I didn't close the door. I didn't close the door. And then interrogative, did, the auxiliary goes in the beginning of the sentence. Did plus subject plus verb in the present plus complements. So, did I close the door? Did I close the door? So, in a moment, I will tell you that you have to memorize lots or some irregular verbs. But when you see these formulas, you realize, os dais cuenta, that you need to memorize the past irregular verb only for the affirmative tense. I closed the door. I ate a hamburger. I drank water. Because in the negative and the interrogative, you need to put the verb in the present, right? So yes, I am sorry. You only have to memorize the past for the affirmative, not for the negative, not for the interrogative, right? Because in the negative and the interrogative, you use didn't or did. Yo siempre digo que en castellano, siempre digo en la negativa, hola, soy una frase. Estoy en pasado, mírame, tengo el didn't. El verbo déjamelo en presente. I didn't close the door. Hola, soy una frase. En interrogativa y estoy en pasado. Did. El verbo déjamelo en presente. Did I close the door? Okay? So now we're going to see some examples. Before we start with the examples, I need to explain to you a tiny difficulty that the past simple has, which is regular verbs and irregular verbs. So In English, we will find some verbs that are regular verbs and some verbs that are irregular verbs. When we find the regular verbs, that's easy peasy lemon squeezy, we only need to add ed. Close, closed. Jump, jumped. Walk, walked. Open, opened. Right? When we find irregular verbs, we need to memorize them. In the beginning, it's a bit difficult, but then it becomes easier and easier. So, examples of irregular verbs we will see in a minute, but eat, ate, drink, drank, swim, swam. They don't follow any rules, so you need to memorize them. Okay? That is the only tiny difficulty that the English has when talking about the past simple. Okay? So let's have a look at some examples. I went to the swimming pool. I went to the swimming pool. Negative. You can pause the video and try to do the negative. I didn't go to the swimming pool. I didn't go to the swimming pool. What about the interrogative? Did I go to the swimming pool? Did I go to the swimming pool? You were a very good kid when you were 4. You were a very good kid when you were 4. Negative? You weren't a very good kid when you were 4. You were a bit naughty. You weren't a very good kid when you were 4. Interrogative? Were you a good kid when you were 4? Were you a good kid when you were 4? Affirmative. He jumped very high. He jumped very high. Negative. He didn't jump very high. He didn't jump very high. Interrogative. You try. Did he jump very high? Did he jump very high? This one is a bit difficult. She could finish her homework on time. She could finish her homework on time. Pasado del verbo poder. Could. She could finish her homework on time. She couldn't finish her homework on time. Her dog took it. She couldn't finish her homework on time. Ooh, was she able to finish her homework on time? Was she able to finish her homework on time? Esta es difícil. Pasadla si os parece muy difícil. Y si no, aprovecháis. Was she able to finish her homework on time? ¿Pudo acabar ella sus deberes a tiempo? Right? It swam happily in the lake. It, referring to the dog, it swam happily in the lake. Negative? It didn't swim in the lake. Poor dog. It didn't swim in the lake. It didn't swim in the lake. Did it swim in the lake? Did it swim in the lake? We looked at the birds for 10 minutes. We looked at the birds for 10 minutes. Negative. We didn't look at the birds for 10 minutes. We didn't look at the birds for 10 minutes. Did we look at the birds for 10 minutes? Did we look at the birds for 10 minutes? That doesn't make much sense. You played, you, vosotros, you played a very interesting game in class. You played a very interesting game in class. You didn't play a very interesting game in class, so you were bored. You didn't play a very interesting game in class. Did you play a very interesting game in class? Did you play a very interesting game in class? They found a treasure on the island. They found a treasure on the island. They didn't find a treasure on the island. They didn't find a treasure on the island. Did they find a treasure on the island? Did they find a treasure on the island? Okay, so now all of these verbs that we've just seen on this list of examples, we're going to divide them into regular verbs and irregular verbs. Why did I use these verbs? Why did I use go, to be, was, were, jump, finish, could, swim, look, play, and find, because these are the verbs that our book, High Five, uses. So that's why I use these verbs. So when you go to the activity book, it's easier for you to understand the verbs. So let's prepare the table. So we have regular verbs and irregular verbs. So the first verb we saw was go. So go, went, ir. Okay, present go, past went, Spanish ir. To be, was, were, ser o estar. To be, was, were, ser o estar. Then we saw jump, jumped, saltar. Can, could, poder. Swim, swam, nadar. Look, looked, mirar. Look, looked, mirar. Play, played, jugar o tocar, un instrumento. Find, found, encontrar, right? And I always like to study the same regular verbs as irregular verbs. So we have 5 irregular verbs and we only have 3 regular verbs. So we are going to add 2 more regular verbs, which are help, helped, ayudar, start, started, empezar, right? 2 activities, very easy activities to finish this video. Activity number 1, complete the gaps with the correct verb. So we have play, start, go, look, and swim. I violin lessons when I was 5. He in the river. I didn't because the water was very cold. Yesterday they football after school. They didn't to London last year. Did they at the sky last night? The moon was so big. Okay, so you have to complete the gaps with the verb. Remember that the verb needs to be in the past. Okay, but be careful because there is a negative sentence and an interrogative sentence. Second activity, I have some questions for you. We already did this activity when we talked about the present simple. So you answer to me these questions. Did you study at Maristas last year? And you have to say, yes, Mar, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. Did you practice any sports last weekend? Did you like vegetables when you were a kid? Were you a good kid when you were little, or were you naughty, maybe? And last question, did you swim last week? Okay, so this is the end of the video. We have to do more about past simple, but I prefer to start from the very beginning. So yes, see you in the next video and of course in class. Bye-bye.
Baby, I'm trying. Boy, I hear you in my dreams. I feel you whisper across